What is up, my riders? If you guys have not already seen my TikTok, I'm going to put it right here. I'm sorry if I keep promoting it, but I really have fun doing this, and I've been uploading frequently on it because it's been easier to up with than YouTube. And I'm still going to do YouTube, don't get me wrong, but this is a fun little thing that I did, and I dedicate a lot of stuff to like Casey and other like fun videos and stuff. So hopefully you guys check it out. I'm looking to get to at least 100 followers in the next like week or so and get my views up. So if you guys haven't already, please check it out. I appreciate it. So you guys have been through the whole almost year-long journey of me stretching my ears, and I kind of wanted to touch upon why I shrank them back down. Some of you guys probably didn't even know that I shrank them back down. Pretty much like the whole story behind it. First and foremost, kind of what started the whole thing is a collaboration of everything. I really fell in love with stone jewelry. I loved how stone plugs looked. And that was one of my go-tos when I got to a bigger size, was stone jewelry. When I started to wear stone jewelry, my ears would get like really bad. They would get really dry and like a crust behind them. And I had to take them out, put vitamin E on them almost every single day. And they progressively got worse. They started to swell on the inside. So I was like, maybe it's a weird thing. Maybe I didn't give it enough time to heal. So I would go back to the metal tunnels, wait like a month, and then try again. And the same thing happened. So that kind of like really got me low feeling about them because I couldn't really find plugs that I liked other than that. And when I was at a zero size, the zero gauge tunnel looks really cool when you can see through it. It's cool to see through your ear. But eventually it gets like tiring, or you don't want to do that anymore. So I was like, how do I go from the tunnels to plugs then? So if I couldn't do stone, I would do glass. Well, the majority of the glass ones that I would find, at least the real glass ones, were the really long like taper plugs. And they're nice and all, but they're really long. They stick out from the back. And my problem was at a 0 gauge or even a 2 gauge, for my case scenario, it was pulling down on my ear and not sitting properly. So I really didn't like that look either. Then comes along, my mom figured out that I had them and kind of like had a mini freak out about that. So that was kind of more of like icing on the cake for why I wanted to just shrink them back down. But the one thing I think that got in my head to shrink them back down was every single fake gauge that I've worn looks really good. I really like the look of these. I couldn't find plugs that even looked like these. The only ones that I could find like this were silicone ones, and knowing how sensitive my skin is and realizing how sensitive it was to stone, I was like, yeah, it's probably not going to be the greatest thing to have silicone either. Acrylic, silicone, stuff like that usually are very porous, or they harbor a lot of bacteria, which is just bad for the ear in general, unless you're cleaning it all the time. That was the sealing deal for me, is I like the look of these better anyways. But also, I was really not loving the fact that with the 0 gauge, it was uncomfortable sometimes for me to sleep because how big they were and how like they started to get weighed down. I don't know what it was about how I sleep, but I'd wake up and my ears were so sore. And I know for a fact it wasn't because of stretching, because this went on for the whole healing process. It went on after the healing process. It kind of actually started when I was around, I'd say the 2 gauge mark, because then the 2 to the 1 and then the 1 to the 0, I experienced all of this with all of them, which sucked because I really liked having gauges, and it was kind of like a fun experience for me. Pretty much it was an experience that I got to a point where I was like, all right, now I've gotten to my goal, now what? And for me, it pretty much made more sense to shrink back down to the regular earring size. More than anything else, I was curious if my ears would even shrink back. And I was like, for a lot of people that do the gauge journey like me, and then decide, well, maybe this isn't the look for me, maybe I don't want them, whatever the reason was, could you go back? So I started taking pictures of the shrinking process, and I will show them here now on screen as like a collage thing. And they did start to shrink back almost immediately, which was kind of weird for me because I was like, I took them out for an hour they were already down to a 1 gauge. So I couldn't even get the 0 gauge back in. So I put the 1 gauge in. 1 gauge started getting like tight feeling. And I was like, that's weird. Let me try a 2 gauge. Put the 2 gauge in, wore the 2 gauge jewelry that I had, the glass ones. And within like an hour of wearing them, I was like, I don't know how I feel about the white ones. Those are the white glass. I was like, I don't know how I feel about these. I'll try the 1 gauge back. I couldn't get the 1 gauge back in. So I'm like, oh crap, I just went down 2 sizes by accident. And I didn't really want to go through re-stretching and risking like a tear from going back and forth with that. So I let them at the 2, and then that's when I decided, I'm like, might as well just go back down. That was a weird thing too, how fast they shrank for how long it took to get to the mark, which was kind of irritating as well. It's kind of like if you let your earring go, everyone knows it has their ears pierced for a while. It's going to take a little while for your ear to completely close. My ears had a lot of elasticity, so they wanted to go back almost immediately. So I'm going to show you guys for the first time. I haven't checked them in probably like 4 days. They pretty much have shrank down. I still have a little bit of like swelling inside, but that is the right. We'll take the left out. Is the left. So if you guys were curious, it's possible, at least for some people, this was a 0 gauge stretch for about a month and a half, 2 months. Now they're pretty much what an ear piercing looks like, minus a couple sizes. So I actually did figure out what my ears were around for you guys. What I did was I used the tapers to see what size I was at for you guys, just the people that were curious as to how like close I've gotten. The last time I tried it was 4 days ago. I couldn't even get a 10 gauge taper in. So for me, the 12 gauge was the only size that would go in. 10 gauge would not. It would only go in halfway. 12 gauge slid pretty close, but not completely. If I would have stuck the whole 12 gauge in, it would have been like stretching it to a 12 gauge. And my ears have been progressively shrinking back down per day. And this was 4 days ago. So my guess is I'm probably around the realm of a 14 or 16. Obviously, I still have a little bit of wiggle room with the regular piercings because these are 18 gauge. It's crazy how fast they go back down. But I kind of wanted to explain to you guys, since you were with me the whole journey, I wanted to be like, all right, well, this is why I did this. Hopefully it makes sense to you. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I let people down. This was kind of a fun journey for me, and I had fun doing it, and I do not regret it at all. And even if my ears would have stayed stretched in some regard, I was willing to wear plugs at that size. I wasn't going to be devastated or anything either. It was kind of like hit or miss, just to see and to hopefully help anyone that is on this journey. And I've seen a lot of people that I've watched stretch their ears that have done a video similar to this where they end up going back down. So I feel like it's more or less, you don't have as many options with like plugs and stuff, and people could probably argue against this, but you don't have as many options for plugs, tunnels, whatever you want to call them. So that was like a deciding factor for me. Also because for all the work that I did, I can get these fake plugs in any size. They lay flat and they pretty much look like a gauge, but I don't have to deal with necessarily the things that come with gauges. People like them because of the look, people like them because of the style, all that good stuff, and that's awesome. But there is a lot of maintenance for stretching your ears. There's a lot of maintenance with it. Cleaning your ears daily. They do start to smell. People will say that that's because you're taking bad care of them. I was washing mine and doing a sea soak until they healed, and then I was continually pulling them out and cleaning them, and then vitamin E every single day, and they still had an odor. It's just how gauges are. The skin wants to keep shedding. And even with regular earrings, if I would let my earrings go for like 2 months, the 18 gauge ones I have in now, they're gonna get the same thing. It's not gonna be anywhere at the same level, but it comes with having earrings and gauges and whatnot. But the factor of them being so like maintenance heavy and stuff too, with everything else, just for me, wasn't right for me. I'm sure it's right for other people, and I'm sure other people do not mind it. And like I said, it was a fun journey, and I don't regret it at all. So hopefully that straightens everything up. I love you guys. Make sure to be happy, stress less. I will see you in the next one. As always,